What if Ukraine's fiercest battles are no longer fought with missiles and tanks, but through silent wars waged on tracks, power grids, and supply roads? It is a haunting question, and its answer is changing the very nature of modern conflict. For centuries, wars were defined by armies clashing head-on, by flags planted in battered soil, by generals drawing bold arrows on shifting maps. But now, in the heart of Ukraine, war has slipped its old skin. It has become a struggle fought as much in the shadows, through sabotage, disruption, and the race to repair, as in the open fields and ruined towns where soldiers face off directly. In recent days, tension and disorder have swept through Ukrainian defenses. Entire brigades are being shuffled across the country at breakneck speed, as commanders race to reinforce weak spots before the enemy can exploit them. Meanwhile, the digital rumor mill churns with whispers of upheaval, signaling a deeper crisis that headlines barely capture. Look past reports of villages won or lost. The true contest unfolds along the arteries of war: railways, highways, and energy lines. Every strike on a train depot, every blackout caused by a missile hitting a substation, sends shockwaves across the front, crippling movement and communication far from the immediate blast zone. These lifelines, rails, roads, and power cables, are under constant assault. Their loss can isolate entire cities, turning an ordinary shipment of fuel or ammunition into a perilous high-stakes mission. When trains stall and electricity vanishes for thousands, military convoys become easy prey for drones and artillery. These are not mere logistical snags. They can tip the balance of survival for frontline units and the civilians behind them. Now, the fate of vast regions depends not only on soldiers at the front, but on the courage and ingenuity of those fighting to keep supplies flowing. Each locomotive lost, each transformer destroyed, erodes the capacity to hold out or strike back. The real cascade of disaster often starts far from the trenches, in the corridors that sustain them. Ignore these invisible battles, and you risk missing the true engine of victory or collapse. A single day's disruption can spark retreats, civilian hardship, or even flip the momentum of the war itself. The stakes have never been higher, and every logistical failure magnifies the danger for both sides. But how did the war shift so dramatically to this hidden front? And what are both sides doing to tip the balance? To answer that, we need to dig into the new strategies, technologies, and vulnerabilities now shaping the conflict's outcome. Forget the old maps with their shifting front lines. Right now, every train, every road, and every power line is more vital than any border traced on a battlefield. Today, troop movements are less about grabbing territory and far more about defending the lifelines of the war, supply routes and key logistical hubs. The contest has become a race to keep these arteries flowing, or to cut them, because whoever controls them gains the real upper hand. Consider what has happened just recently. Russian forces have pushed into crucial towns like Balagan and Kazatskaya. These are not just marks on a map. They are gateways to the region's economy. The loss of major industrial centers, such as the Pokrovsk coal complex, does not just choke off military supplies. It cripples the whole local economy, disrupting the flow of everything from fuel to ammunition. When these industrial nodes go dark, the consequences ripple far beyond the front lines. The chaos of this war is now most visible in the scramble behind the scenes. Civilians and government officials are being evacuated, archives rushed out, and roads barricaded. The region is under siege, not only from incoming attacks, but from the pure uncertainty of where the next breakthrough might strike. One sudden detour, a blocked road, or a destroyed bridge can turn relative order into chaos within hours. What is truly perilous is that the collapse or protection of even a single logistical artery can trigger a chain reaction. Lose one rail junction, and you do not just lose a route for troops. Entire regions could be stranded, cut off from medical care, reinforcements, and basic supplies. One break can unravel defensive positions or force mass evacuations, making the whole war effort far more fragile than any static map suggests. That is why, for both sides, the battle is shifting away from the front lines and into the vital network behind them. The real contest is now about who can move, supply, and reinforce faster. Every logistical choice, every train dispatched, every road patched, every convoy rerouted, could tip not just the next battle, but the fate of the region itself. If you miss the importance of this logistical war, you risk misreading who is truly gaining ground, how quickly fortunes can turn, and what the real costs are, not just in lost soldiers, but in entire cities left powerless, economies halted, and millions of lives thrown into turmoil. But behind each logistical crisis, a dangerous new front has emerged: intensified strikes on infrastructure and the scramble to defend what remains. The next phase will hinge on how well each side can adapt to these invisible, high-stakes assaults. Imagine this: a single missile or drone strike takes out a critical railway hub. Overnight, tens of thousands of tons of ammunition, food, and fuel sit stranded. An entire region's ability to fight, or even survive, teeters on the edge. Russian forces have launched a relentless campaign against the arteries of Ukraine's logistics. In recent weeks, dozens of locomotive depots, power substations, and strategic rail junctions have been obliterated, each one a unique asset that cannot be restored quickly, if at all. Railways, often described as the veins of modern war, are being cut. Their silence chokes not only the movement of troops and weapons, but also the lifelines of food, medicine, and humanitarian aid for millions. With vast rail networks crippled, the burden falls onto the roads. Here, the crisis only deepens. Fields are swamped by near-constant rain, transforming dirt tracks into impassable mud. The few remaining routes are narrow and predictable, a perfect trap for drones that haunt every convoy. Each supply truck, each ambulance, becomes a target. The more urgent the mission, the higher the risk, feeding a punishing cycle that drains both resources and morale. Western-supplied air defenses once promised protection from these strikes, but Russian forces have adapted, introducing new missiles and erratic flight paths that slip through radar nets. More attacks now breach the shield, and the destruction compounds daily. Ukrainian defenders scramble, redeploying precious units or even requesting NATO aircraft to fill the gaps. Shifting forces to protect one city leaves another exposed, a lethal game of whack-a-mole that could unravel the entire defense. The impact radiates far from the front lines. Each blow to energy or transport infrastructure plunges entire towns into darkness. Hospitals run on dwindling generators, water stops flowing, and families huddle in the cold. For millions, the front line is no longer distant. It is their own street, their own home. The stakes could scarcely be higher. One logistical misstep could mean lost ground, shattered morale, and spiraling civilian suffering. The battle for supply lines, the invisible war, now shapes the fate of the conflict in real time. So, how are both sides evolving under this relentless strain? What new tactics and technologies are emerging as the hidden war for infrastructure becomes the arena where victory or defeat may be decided? To understand the next phase, we must look at the rapid arms race in technology and tactics now underway. Both sides are racing to outmaneuver each other in this new shadowy theater. What happens when the tempo of war is dictated not by generals, but by engineers and repair crews battling the clock to keep the lights burning, the trains moving, and lifelines unbroken? In Ukraine, the front lines are only one facet of the struggle. The deeper war is now waged over infrastructure, logistics, and the race to out-adapt an enemy set on disruption. This is no longer simply a contest of brute force, but a relentless battle of innovation, resilience, and pressure on the vital systems that sustain both armies and civilians. On both sides, tactics morph with astonishing speed. Missile paths are tweaked to dodge defenses, first-person view drones stalk convoys and command posts, and teams work around the clock to repair or sabotage critical nodes. The new battlefield favors those who can modify, improvise, and respond in real time, where technology and quick thinking become as decisive as courage or firepower. Western defense experts now concede an unsettling truth. Even the most sophisticated air defense systems are intercepting only a small share of the latest threats. Faster, more agile missiles and drones are slipping through, pressing urgent upgrades and revealing perilous vulnerabilities. Each successful strike on infrastructure sends shocks far beyond the blast, crippling transport, stalling resupply, and sometimes severing whole regions for days at a time. For Ukrainian civilians, resilience is tested with every blackout, each fresh disruption to water or heat. Cities are plunged into darkness, families adjust to life without basics, and economic activity grinds down. In isolated areas, logistics falter, delivery trucks are ambushed, railways sabotaged, and store shelves thin out. Every attack on a substation or railway hub is felt in the cold homes and shuttered shops far from the front. Soldiers, too, feel the mounting strain. Morale now hinges not only on battlefield success, but on the safety of families back home. When the power grid collapses or roads are cut, so does the sense of security. Troops on the line must wonder if their loved ones have heat, light, or a path to flee danger. The psychological toll of war deepens as uncertainty spreads through every layer of society. Meanwhile, information warfare has reached fever pitch. The battlefield is clouded with rumors, disinformation, and unverifiable claims. Foreign commanders under fire, mysterious new weapons, shifting control zones. No one can say where the next blow will land, or what the real fallout of any strike might be. Leaders are forced to make decisions in a fog thickened by manipulated narratives and deliberate confusion. This conflict is evolving into a war of attrition, not just of men and machines, but of supply lines, repair teams, and the ability to restore what is lost before the next attack arrives. The speed of adaptation now rivals firepower itself. Each day, the side that can move, fix, and innovate fastest may seize the initiative, while the slower risks falling irretrievably behind. Victory in this phase could trigger a sudden shift. Restored railways, hardened power grids, and protected convoys might tip the balance. Failure to adapt, or to defend and rebuild the arteries of war, leads only to mounting losses. Both military and civilian spheres are in jeopardy. Every blackout, ruined bridge, or failed repair sends ripples outward, raising the stakes for all. So the urgent question remains: what are the hard lessons from this new kind of war? What should every nation, every leader, and every observer learn as the true shape of the conflict emerges? The answers have implications far beyond Ukraine's borders. As the world watches, the strategies forged here could reshape how future conflicts are fought and survived. In this war, supply lines are not merely logistics, they are lifelines. The lessons learned here are clear, and so are the mistakes that cannot be repeated. When infrastructure is targeted, the line between survival and collapse is counted in hours, sometimes even less. The side able to swiftly repair severed supply routes, reroute precious resources, and anticipate the enemy's next strike gains a fleeting but critical advantage. Every shattered bridge or sabotaged rail line becomes a race against time. Repair crews work by torchlight, patching roads and reviving power grids as drones circle above. Each minute lost can ripple across entire regions, stalling reinforcements, starving cities, or plunging communities into darkness. Civilians stand on the front line of resilience. They are not passive. Their determination keeps the morale of the nation alive, holds families together, and powers the defense effort from behind the scenes. The ability of ordinary people to withstand blackouts, improvise supply routes, and keep vital services running may shift the balance, even when battle lines appear static. Yet, the temptation for dramatic short-term victories is ever present. Rushing troops to a threatened city or launching a sudden counterattack can win a day, maybe a week, but it risks bleeding reserves dry. Overextending defenses or losing a single supply hub can trigger cascading failures far from the fighting, threatening to unravel months of hard-won ground. Not all battlefield headlines mean lasting change. Some victories are loud but fleeting, while quieter setbacks, like the silent loss of a power station, can cripple the enemy's future moves. Information must be scrutinized. Rumors about secret deployments or devastating new weapons may distract from the crucial story unfolding in the shadows, where infrastructure and supply quietly shape tomorrow's fight. True investment now lies in repair teams, emergency caches, decentralized logistics, and local energy solutions. The capacity to adapt, repair, and keep supplies moving, even as roads are cratered and the grid falters, is what separates resilience from collapse. This is not only a battle for territory, but a war for time itself. Which side can patch what is broken faster, endure setbacks longer, and outmaneuver disaster's next blow? That contest will determine who can keep fighting, and who will be forced to yield. Missing these lessons risks more than lost ground. It threatens the collapse of essential services, the exhaustion of both troops and citizens, and a loss of public faith that may prove impossible to restore. For leaders and civilians alike, the ability to adapt is not just an advantage, it is the only path to survival. The struggle for Ukraine's future now hinges on these invisible battles behind the front. But how do these logistical duels translate into the daily realities faced by millions? And what does it really mean for the war's next phase? The true front lines are drawn not just in trenches, but in the darkness behind them, where the next turning point could arrive before it ever flashes across a news ticker. Here, the war's fate is shaped by forces most never see: the arteries of supply, the hum of power grids, the silent lifelines of logistics. It is not the gunfire or the explosions that decide tomorrow, but the quiet sabotage of a railway, the sudden blackout in a city, the convoy that never arrives. Every bridge brought down, every railway junction sabotaged, every truck stranded by a missile strike ripples far beyond a single day's headlines. These are the invisible battles, where the struggle is to keep ammunition flowing, move wounded to safety, and keep the lights on in embattled towns. One failed shipment, one lost power station, can force entire brigades to withdraw or leave civilians trapped in the dark. In this phase, the smallest act behind the lines can ignite a chain reaction, plunging regions into chaos before the world even notices. For Ukraine, each brigade diverted to plug a breach, every depot destroyed, is a high-stakes gamble: protect a city or risk exposing a vulnerable flank. For Russia, every disrupted fuel line, each sabotaged rail spur, is a lever to tighten the pressure, force Ukraine to make hard choices, or break the will to resist. This is a duel of endurance, adaptability, and nerve, where a single mistake can reverberate for weeks, and the next collapse may come not with a bang, but with the silent halt of a freight train, or a city swallowed by darkness after a midnight drone swarm. The headlines may focus on dramatic advances or lost territory, but the relentless squeeze in the rear is what could decide the war's outcome, long before the world catches up. The real signals are subtle: shifting troop movements, sudden outages, bridges felled in the night. Those who watch these patterns, who sense the tremors beneath the surface, are the ones who will see the true direction of the conflict, while others are left blindsided by the next seismic shift. So next time a headline blares about a captured village or a new offensive, pause and look deeper. What is unfolding behind the scenes, beyond the visible front? Because in this war, the future is forged in the shadows, and only those who know where to look can spot the real turning points before they arrive. But let's dig even deeper and see how these invisible battles have played out in history, and what practical steps can be taken today to survive and even prevail in a war where logistics, not just gunfire, decide the fate of nations. Consider the lessons from the Second World War, where the Allied bombing campaign over Germany focused on rail yards, bridges, and fuel depots. The destruction of a single bridge over the Rhine could delay entire armies, strand thousands of soldiers, and force commanders to rethink entire offensives. During the siege of Leningrad, the city's survival depended not only on the courage of its defenders, but on the perilous road of life across frozen Lake Ladoga, a single fragile supply route bombed relentlessly by enemy aircraft. Each successful crossing meant another day of life for hundreds of thousands. Each failure spelled hunger and despair. In more recent memory, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq exposed the vulnerabilities of modern supply chains. Insurgents targeted fuel convoys and bridges, knowing that even the world's most powerful armies could be brought to a halt if their logistics were crippled. In Iraq, after the initial shock and awe campaign, U.S. forces struggled to keep convoys moving along highways where IEDs turned each mile into a deadly gamble. The lesson was clear. Control of supply lines was as vital as control of territory. Today in Ukraine, these historical patterns repeat with new technologies. First-person view, FPV drones, equipped with explosives and guided with uncanny precision, stalk supply convoys in ways unimaginable even a decade ago. Each drone attack on a fuel truck or ambulance is not just a loss of equipment. It is a blow to morale, a message that nowhere is truly safe. In response, Ukrainian crews have begun using camouflage netting, decoys, and rapid repair teams that move under cover of darkness, patching roads and laying new fiber optic lines as soon as shelling ceases. In one case, a railway bridge outside Dnipro was rebuilt in under 3 days after a missile strike, thanks to a volunteer corps of engineers who worked through the night, risking sniper and drone attack. Their efforts restored a vital link that allowed medicines and reinforcements to reach the front just in time. But the struggle is not only about fixing what is broken. It is about anticipating the next blow, decentralizing supply caches, and building redundancy into every system. Ukrainian cities now store emergency fuel and medical kits in dozens of hidden locations, so that a single successful strike cannot cripple an entire region. Solar panels and local generators, once rare, now dot the rooftops of hospitals and schools, providing at least a trickle of power during the longest blackouts. Civilians have organized neighborhood watch groups to spot saboteurs or drones, sending alerts through encrypted messaging apps. In Kharkiv, volunteers developed a system of pop-up markets that relocate each morning, ensuring that food reaches residents even when roads are closed or markets are targeted by artillery. On the Russian side, too, logistics are evolving. Engineers lay temporary rail spurs under cover of camouflage netting, while supply trains run at night to avoid drone attacks. Portable bridges, once the domain of special engineering units, are now deployed by regular troops who receive crash courses on their assembly. The goal is simple: never let the enemy predict where or when supplies will move. In one recent example, Russian forces rerouted an entire logistics hub through a series of country roads and abandoned farms, frustrating Ukrainian drone operators and allowing reinforcements to reach the front undetected. Both sides are locked in a cat-and-mouse game of anticipation and adaptation. Every new tactic is quickly met with a counter. Every innovation breeds the next challenge. When Ukrainian defenders began using armored trains to move supplies through contested zones, Russian forces responded with specialized anti-railway munitions designed to penetrate steel and derail entire carriages. In turn, Ukrainian railway workers developed rapid repair kits and armored maintenance vehicles, allowing them to restore damaged tracks in record time. For ordinary people, this logistical warfare is felt every day. When a power station is hit, families huddle in candlelight, boiling water on camp stoves and sharing news by word of mouth. When bridges fall, detours can add hours or days to simple journeys, and hospitals must ration fuel for their generators. In one small town near Zaporizhzhia, teachers taught students in the basement by flashlight for weeks, using battery-powered radios to coordinate lessons across neighborhoods. Their resilience kept hope alive, even as shellfire rattled the windows above. Practical steps have become a way of life. Civilians prepare emergency kits with food, water, and medicine for at least 3 days of isolation. Communities designate safe houses and establish check-in times so that missing persons can be quickly located. Local businesses donate vehicles and fuel to help move supplies when official convoys are stalled. In Kyiv, a network of bicycle couriers delivers essential medicines through alleys too narrow for vehicles, dodging debris and checkpoints to keep the city functioning. At the same time, governments and NGOs have adapted their strategies. Decentralized warehouses, mobile repair teams, and stockpiles of critical spare parts are now embedded into every major city's emergency plan. Some cities have invested in microgrids, localized power networks that can operate independently if the main grid goes down. These investments, though costly, have paid dividends during the worst blackouts, keeping hospitals and water pumps running when all else fails. Beyond the immediate crisis, international partners have stepped up with support. Satellite imagery and real-time intelligence from allies allow Ukrainian planners to anticipate attacks on infrastructure and reroute convoys away from danger. Western countries have expedited shipments of mobile generators, portable water purification units, and armored vehicles designed for supply missions. In one notable case, a convoy of humanitarian aid crossed 300 kilometers of contested territory, protected by a mix of drone overwatch and electronic jamming to foil enemy surveillance. But this support comes with its own challenges. Each new piece of technology must be integrated into local systems, and repair crews must be trained to use and fix unfamiliar equipment. Language barriers, spare parts shortages, and the constant threat of attack make this a race against time and exhaustion. Here, too, adaptability is key. Success goes not to the side with the most equipment, but to the one that can keep it running under fire. And so, the invisible war for Ukraine's lifelines rages on. Every day brings new examples of resilience, innovation, and sacrifice. Acts that rarely make headlines, yet shape the future of the conflict as surely as any tank battle or artillery duel. The fate of entire regions hangs on the ability to keep supplies moving, to patch what is broken, and to outthink an enemy determined to sow chaos. In the end, the deeper lesson is clear. Wars are no longer won solely by armies on the field, but by the tireless work of those, civilian and military alike, who labor in the shadows to keep the arteries of a nation beating. For Ukraine, for Russia, and for every country that may one day face a similar test, the struggle behind the front lines is now the true crucible of survival. So as we watch the headlines, let's remember. The next turning point may not be marked by a flag planted on a hilltop, but by the hum of a repaired transformer, the rumble of a freight train rolling through the night, or the quiet determination of a community refusing to be broken by darkness. Tomorrow's victors will be those who master not just the art of war, but the science and the soul of keeping a nation alive when all else seems lost. The war for Ukraine's future is being decided in the shadows, on the rails, and in the hearts of those who refuse to let the lifelines of their country be severed. In this, the lesson for us all is as old as conflict itself, and as urgent as the challenges of today.